Okay, we're going to get started then. We've got around 11 people so far. So welcome to today's webinar. So the webinar is focused on dreaming of a green Christmas. So it's our last webinar of the year. So what we're going to go through today, so my name is Rosie, I'm a sustainability consultant here at Recorra, and this is my colleague Emily, who's also a sustainability consultant. So on the agenda today, we're going to go through the importance of sustainability at Christmas, the environmental effects that the holiday seasons can have, a bit about food waste at Christmas and how we can tackle this, top tips for a greener festive season, and at the end, we're going to be making a 2025 sustainable pledge. So throughout the session, if you could try and think of anything that we're saying that you can make as your sustainable pledge, that would be great. And we will also give you some examples at the end. So starting off with sustainability at Christmas and a little bit about carbon footprint. So what is a carbon footprint? So this is the total amount of greenhouse gases emitted from human activities. It's really important that we understand about a carbon footprint, so it helps us to understand the impact we're having on the environment and how we can make more sustainable choices to reduce our carbon footprint. So at Christmas alone, the average person's carbon footprint can increase 25 to 30% during the holiday season, which is really significant. So it's really important that we understand about the carbon footprint so we can reduce this. So this is mainly due to things like travel, energy use and waste. And we do also have Santa here who's delivering Christmas presents and letting off some emissions. So why is it important to be sustainable at Christmas? So the holiday season alone contributes significantly to waste, energy and carbon emissions. So a few facts that we have is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day combined make up just 6% of the UK's total annual carbon emissions, which is a really significant amount. 75% of Christmas cards end up in general waste. A lot of this is because they aren't recycled or because a lot of cards are made up with glitter and foils, which unfortunately makes them unrecyclable. And then we also have, by the time we reach spring, nearly half of toys, 41%, will be broken and end up in landfill. Of course, at Recorra, we have a zero to landfill policy, so that doesn't happen with us and nothing gets sent to landfill, although this does highlight the overconsumption that we do have and how a lot of it does end up going into general waste anyway. So I'm going to run through the causes of CO2 at Christmas. So as mentioned, the main things are travel, energy use and waste. So a little bit about travel. So we have a CO2 spike at Christmas due to the amount of air travel, as a lot of people are flying long distances to visit family. 10 million people in the UK alone fly out in December, and these are usually long haul trips as well. And road trips increase emissions by 5% during the holiday seasons. A lot of people going to visit their families or there's work events. It's causing lots of travel as well. Energy use is also a really big part of carbon emissions. So UK energy consumption rises 25% at Christmas. This is mainly by things such as heating, cooking and festive lighting. Festive lighting contributes to 1.1 million tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions annually, which is a really large amount. And then obviously waste, which is where we come in a bit more. So we produce enough wrapping paper to go around the earth 9 times, which is a crazy amount of wrapping paper. That's 227 miles of wrapping paper at Christmas. And we increase our waste by 30% with 3 million tonnes extra produced at Christmas. So these all show how much it is important to be sustainable at Christmas, as everything gets increased: travel, energy use and waste. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a bit about food waste at Christmas. We've got our cute little reindeer on our food caddy there, just quite cute. So food is obviously a huge part of Christmas. We come together with friends and family to have lots of food together, but it does create a lot of waste, unfortunately. So 2 million tonnes of food waste is generated at Christmas, which is obviously a huge amount. And I'm just going to run through some of the causes of that. So you might have office parties coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if you do over purchase for office parties, this can be a really big problem because you just buy too much expecting everyone to come. You don't really have an idea of how many people, and then you end up with a lot of leftovers, and then obviously everyone's going home for Christmas, so no one's there to eat it anymore. So a lot of food will end up in waste, unfortunately. Also, if you offer too much of a variety of food, so if you're trying to reach a lot of different dietary requirements and you don't know how many people have those requirements, then often this leads to overbuying as well. And then if you don't have a plan for your leftovers, because sometimes it is difficult to avoid leftovers completely, but yeah, it can cause more food waste if you don't have a plan to distribute them or reuse them. So that's a big problem. And here are just some facts to kind of highlight those issues a bit more. So 2 million turkeys are thrown away every Christmas, which is obviously a huge amount. And 74 million mince pies are also discarded around the Christmas period. So these just highlight the issues with this. Obviously, a lot of resources and energy and time goes into making mince pies and raising the turkeys that the farmers work, and that will all go to waste because they're just being thrown in the bin. So it kind of highlights those issues. And obviously, food waste can have a huge impact on our environment. So, as Rosie mentioned earlier, we don't send anything to landfill with Recorra, but there are some businesses in the UK that still do. So, if food waste does end up in general waste and it sits in landfill, the problem with this is that when it decomposes, it produces methane. And methane is a really big problem. It's a very potent greenhouse gas. So we kind of want to avoid producing that at all costs. And also, food waste contributes to climate change due to the resources it consumes. So if we're producing all this food, using a lot of water, energy, and labor to produce it, and then it ends up being discarded, all of those carbon emissions were kind of for nothing. So yeah, those are kind of the environmental impacts of food waste. But obviously, it's not all doom and gloom. There are ways that we can prevent this from happening and do things to change producing so much food waste. So these are just a few of the things that we've come up with relating to the causes that I spoke about. So if you are planning to have a Christmas party or any party really, it's good to plan ahead, work out how many people will be in attendance. Working out kind of portions for people is just a better way of buying the right amount of food. So this also links to digital sign-ups. So you can send out sign-ups to around to staff so that they can say whether they're coming or not. And then this way you can identify if they have any dietary requirements so that you can buy so many gluten-free options and the right amount of vegan or vegetarian options as well. So that's just one of our recommendations. And then also using leftovers or having a plan for these. So as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a plan, they will end up in general waste or food waste. So you can do things like ask staff to bring in Tupperware, which is a really good thing. They can then take the food left from any parties home with them and reuse it, which is great. And also this relates to at home as well. So if you do have stuff left over from Christmas, it's great to try and reuse it the next day rather than throwing it away. You can also donate leftovers. So Recorra works with a charity called Plan Zeros. You might have heard of it before. So they're a really great charity. They will take leftover food from companies and then they will redistribute it to those in need. And especially around Christmas time, there are a lot of people going hungry and vulnerable people that need this kind of food. So that's a great option as well. And then finally, eating more plant-based meals. Eating plant-based meals is much lower on your carbon footprint than eating meat. So you can really lower your carbon footprint just by switching out a few meat meals for plant-based meals during Christmas time. So that's a really good option as well. So why is food waste important? You might have heard of some of the upcoming legislation called Simpler Recycling. This is happening in March next year. So food waste will actually be mandatory for all businesses in March next year, and then for homes in the following year, so 2026. So it's really important to make sure that food is being put into its separate food waste stream. This is because it gets sent to anaerobic digestion. So we send ours to Biogen, And essentially what they do is they take all the food waste, put it into large tanks, and then it'll sit there for 30 days at 40 degrees. The bacteria produced will then break down the food, and then all the gas is released from that and then converted and sent to the national grid and used as energy. So that's a really great thing that we can get out of food waste. Obviously, the UK are currently having a bit of an energy crisis. So if we can produce as much of our own energy as possible, that's a really good option. And then at the end of the process as well, if there is anything left in the bottom, it's also sent for biofertilizer. So we try and make use of every single thing that comes out of the food waste. So this is why it's really important to make sure it's going into a food waste stream rather than a general waste. So it's now time for some top tips this Christmas. I'm going to run through a few of our ideas. And if you do have any questions at this point, please just put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So, Christmas trees, fake tree versus real tree. So I personally opt for a real tree. Rosie?
I have a fake tree.
Yeah, but you can do both sustainably. So you can, when you're looking for a real tree, you can opt for a locally sourced tree. Also, you could also make the option of getting a potted one. This is great if you have a garden, because then you can plant it back out and then bring it in again next year. And you can keep doing that, obviously, until it gets too big to fit in your house. So that's a really good option. And also, if you are going to go and get the Christmas tree, making sure that it's been grown in an FSC certified plantation is a really good way of sort of thinking more sustainably. And then most importantly, in January, when it's all over, it's really important to think about what you're going to do with your tree. So making sure you recycle it is really important. And Recorra can help with this as well. So this year we're doing a recycle scheme for Christmas trees, where all you'd need to do is purchase one sack and then put the Christmas tree in it and then order a collection from us. And yeah, we'll send it to our reprocessors, Envar, who will then send it for composting, so that you can then get the nutrient-rich compost, and you can also buy that back from our team if you were interested in doing that as well. So fake trees can be more sustainable as well. So this is as long as you use it for a long time. So what you want to avoid with fake trees is buying a new one every year or every couple of years. You kind of want to get the most out of it. So using it for 10 to 20 years is kind of the recommendation. This really helps if you store it properly. So it might seem simple, but just making sure that it is boxed correctly after the Christmas period and put somewhere dry for the rest of the year. This can prolong its life. And you can also opt for recycled plastic trees. So as you can see in the picture here, this is a Christmas tree made out of stormboard. So stormboard is, you might have heard of it before, but it's made out of flexible plastics. So when you do recycle your flexible plastic, this is what it gets made into. And we have this in our office here at Recorra, which is really great. So if you were interested in doing that, you can let us know.
So I'm going to run through a few more top tips at Christmas. So this can be both at home or at work. So trying to support secondhand and local sustainable businesses. So if you are going out and buying lots of presents, maybe try and see if you can support secondhand businesses. So going into charity shops and having a look on Vinted, you can also find some really good unique pieces on these websites. And it's also more sustainable, and supporting local sustainable businesses. For example, if you're looking at different chocolates, you can look at Tony's Chocolonely, as that's quite sustainable. Another big one is reduce, reuse and recycle. So trying to reduce your consumption overall would be great. And that can do things like secondhand. And also trying to stay away from ordering online with places that send lots of packaging, especially if it can't be recycled. Trying to reuse what you can. For example, if you have old newspaper or old paper bags, such as H&M bags, you can use them to wrap up your Christmas presents.
And also try and recycle. So do recycle everything you can. In terms of plastic, we have a top tip at Recorra. Only numbers 1, 2, and 5 can go in the recycling bin. So have a look for the little triangle on your plastic items, and 1, 2, and 5 are allowed in. Also think about gifting an experience. So rather than buying a physical item, you can gift an experience, whether that's theatre tickets, zoo tickets, or whatever you like. Think about doing that as well. Also opting for eco-friendly wrapping paper. So you can now buy more sustainable wrapping paper, which is better for the environment. Although if you do have leftover newspaper or paper bags, that would save you a bit more money as well. And in the office, if you are planning to do a Secret Santa this year, which I know a lot of places we do, you could try and challenge yourself to do a secondhand Secret Santa where you have a budget and you have to go out and find something secondhand. And it's a really good way to start going into secondhand shops, charity shops, used and vintage if you haven't used it before. A few more tips is to be a Scrooge with glitter. So as we know, glitter is a microplastic, which is really harmful for our ecosystems. So try and stay away from glitter. And if you do want that kind of glittery look, you can choose biodegradable confetti. Also to go green with your fairy lights. So you can look for LED options instead. So they save a lot more energy, and also try and make sure you turn them off when you're not in the room to try and save energy as well. Reducing your travel emissions is a really big one as well. At Christmas time, we're often going to different work events, or even in your personal life, if you're going to see family. See if you can share a car with someone if you're going in a big trip, or if you can walk there or get public transport, that would be ideal. And it's also much better for you to walk. And now we're going to make a pledge for 2025. So this is also your time to pop a few questions in the chat box, which we'll talk about at the end. But making a pledge for 2025 to see how you can be more sustainable in the new year. So if you're not too sure what you can pledge about, we've got a few examples here. So Emily will tell you her ones.
Yeah, so my sustainable pledge for the new year is to eat less meat. So I'm going to aim to be meat-free on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's my personal pledge. But you could also pledge to focus on recycling. So you could reduce your single-use plastics and aim for kind of a zero waste lifestyle, which is a really good one.
So my pledge is I pledge to reduce my consumption and purchase more secondhand clothing. But if you're not too sure about that one, you could also think about pledging to reduce your personal carbon footprint by taking public transport or cycling or walking. So there's a few examples for you. If you have any other ideas, feel free to pop them in the chat box. And if you have any pledges, we'd love to hear them and read a few out.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions from today's webinar, you can drop them in the chat box as well. And we'll just have a look now. Okay, so we've got a few. So pledging to do more UK travel by train.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
it is. We know it's more expensive, but it is really good if you can do it rather than flying. So we've got another one, pledging to car share for work events and customer visits. That's really good idea. It's also probably cheaper if you share the price of fuel between everyone.
Mm-hmm. Pledging to buy more sustainable food with less wrappers. That's, yeah. A lot of supermarkets now are trying to stay away from those flexible plastic covered items, and now you can kind of just pick out your fruit and you can buy a reusable bag to put them in. So that's a really good way to reduce your consumption there. Maybe a question on top.
Someone said they like the idea of the plant-based meals, doing a Tuesday and Thursdays. Yeah, so I gave myself those 2 days because it's just a bit easier. I know on a Tuesday and Thursday that I think to eat plant-based meals. You can also revolve that around your shopping as well, food shops.
And that will save you money as well, because meat normally is much more expensive. So in terms of a food waste collection, if you do need one of those, Anna, you can just contact our help desk, or if you do have a dedicated account manager, you can speak to them. But feel free to contact our help desk if you want to book a food waste collection.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to do that.
So someone's put one in about buying secondhand toys this year. So yeah, they've highlighted the fact that kids get bored of them very quickly, which is very true. And as Rosie said earlier, 41% end up in landfill by spring anyway. So it's really good to try and reuse, and they'll never know really anyway. So.
You can use different things like Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree, and you can try and filter it so it's within your local area so that you can just walk and pick up whatever you're collecting. But yeah, it's really good to try and reduce your consumption from supermarkets. So you're doing a 0 gift wrap Christmas using reused gifts and reused packaging. Yeah. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, we've all done that before, reusing gift bags and things like that, and it's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Reducing buying new clothes, such as 3 to 5 items per year, new ones. That's really good. It can be really hard, especially when you feel like you want a new jumper or something, but trying to limit yourself and being conscious of your consumption, I think is a really good key part to that as well.
Perfect.
Hopefully we haven't missed any questions. A lot of the figures that we used were just UK based. So I'm pretty sure that all of the figures we used were UK based. And the figures of food waste was commercial and residential. And with simpler recycling coming in, hopefully we'll be able to tackle food waste a bit better. When that comes into homes as well, it will make everything more streamlined so that if we do have food waste, it's going to the appropriate destination rather than going to incineration or wherever at home they send general waste. So simpler recycling is going to be really good in terms of recycling. Is that all the questions? If you have any more questions, just drop them in the chat box. So we use different places to get the data. One of them was world data.
That's the most common.
The most common one is where we take our data from. You can go on world data and type in things like food, and it can give you loads of different graphs and loads of different statistics. So have a look on world data if you're interested in any data or finding data for anything you need.
Okay, so I hope everyone has managed to make a pledge, even if you haven't put it in the chat. It's great just to think of it in your head and kind of think about that in the new year after Christmas. But we hope everyone enjoys Christmas and has a lovely time with their friends and family. Yeah, thank you all for joining today.
Merry Christmas and have a happy New Year. Thank you.